Guess what? They want something for the money they give you. They want you to proliferate. They want you to do like CyberWatch is doing. They want you to help others teach the material. NISGTC recognized there was a lot of gaps on hands-on labs, so they got together in a grant consortium, the DOLPAA grant, which you can also apply for. And that program has produced probably about 10 to 12 lab libraries in various courses. Very good stuff. Ethical hacking, Security Plus, a lot of really good things. All right, then community-driven courses. How many of you are familiar with Citrix? All right. A lot of industries using Citrix, right? Been around for a long time. Dan Meyer runs a Citrix program. Well, Dan's executive team, no matter how much I tried to figure out how to work with them, didn't see a vision for it yet. We're going to get there one day. So some of the schools on their own started using our software to build some labs for Citrix, and Dan's going to share how you can participate in that. Okay, so that's a quick overview. Here are new courses. These are not all courses. These are new courses. These courses are either there for you to do hands-on labs or they're coming out. Anybody see any labs up there they're interested in, you'd like for your students to be able to do? Other than Rick Watson, he loves to do labs. Okay. I think the really important ones here, in my opinion, these are all new from Cisco. And if you're not at Cisco Academy, I got to ask, holy cow, just the base education you offer your students so they can go through those modules on their own, it's really good stuff. They're really given to the community. When you're ready for your student to go from the simulator and you want to access real gear, sometimes it's really expensive to refresh the gear. So what if you could work with Richard and get access to his gear and do all these lab libraries from these different courses on real gear? That's our model. That's how it works. Cisco comes out with these new courses. We push the lab updates to Richard's server, our software, and all the hardware and automation to manage the hardware, and then you're up and running. He can start sharing equipment with high schools or anyone else that wants to access that equipment. All right, security, forensics, ethical hacking, Security Plus. NISGTC and Cassia partnered together to produce all these lab libraries, and they're probably going to produce more. Is that true, John? Okay. So these are topic areas where people are looking for hands-on labs. So I think those are great value. Virtualization, almost all of Fortune 500 uses VMware. If somebody really wants to get a job, they come to you, they want to retrain, they got some IT skills, get a VCP. Probably going to get a job. Just do a job search in San Francisco. It's amazing how many jobs there are. EMC Academic Alliance, this is building blocks. If you don't know storage, it's really hard to know virtualization. Would everybody agree? I mean, you got to know a little bit about storage to really be able to manage a virtual environment. This course introduces storage to you. CIS introduces cloud, kind of like, hey, I'm a business guy, but I don't understand it. It lets you do a few things in the virtualization environment, and this one course can map up to 4 certs. 3 of them VCA from VMware, and 1 CIS from EMC, Cloud Infrastructure Services. And then we get into Larry, Mo, and Curly, pardon me, sorry, Chuck and Ross. Hey. The Linux Professional Institute, the Penguin guy, trying to brand you guys.
You know who Curly is.
All right, yeah, here I am. Okay, so this is what we're doing. We take our software, load on appliance. Yes, it will be a virtual appliance. You got the right infrastructure, you can scale it much higher. Your lab equipment, which is Cisco gear, and vSphere, ESXi servers. Then your students can be anywhere and they can access it through a web browser. That's straightforward. That's what we're doing. Now, the whole point is we want to share. I train instructors. Instructors don't get resources they need often, right? Especially high school or certain community colleges, you don't get access to equipment. So we're trying to create a model where you can get access to resources. We manage the virtual machines. Our software is talking to vCenter to automate the virtual machines. Can you do this? Absolutely. There are other projects other than our own. Somebody go, oh wow, why would you highlight that? Guys, there's all kinds of products and tools that are going to be built. More technology is going to be built. We are trying to add value and give back. Are we a business? Absolutely. But as Cisco identified us, we want to be a social responsible business. I think those are pretty popular in California. We want to do the same thing, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, we manage Cisco gear. This gets harder and harder. Anybody know why? In 15 years, we have never EOL'd a device. You tell me a company that's done that for schools. It's almost impossible. So we're still driving gear that you had around 15 years ago. By the end of this year, we're going to have to change that. It's almost impossible to sustain everything. It's scheduled access. Why is that important? If you can only afford 1 set of gear, and you want to share it with 5 schools, you can timeshare it. Asynchronously, students can access it. GUI for administration, GUI for instructor, and GUI for student access. So we're trying to make it easy. This is really what's going on. The NetLab software is talking to vCenter, kicks off virtual machines when needed, marries it to Cisco gear if needed, or marries it to a content library if needed. Now, why is that important? A lot of people like to throw out a virtual machine. Like they'll go, hey, why don't we just get some virtual machines off the Amazon cloud, like Linux machines? Absolutely, go for it. It's a great model. But what the problem is when you want to marry it to learning objectives, you need the VM to start in the right place, or you need the library of labs designed to the curriculum. Or it's going to be really hard to match the student learning experience. So when we kick off these virtual machines, we want the software to marry them to the right lab library and the right exercises for the learning objectives to get the student to the cert. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Cisco gear is a little tougher when we're talking about real gear. Everybody familiar with Packet Tracer? Great tool. Awesome tool. Dennis Frezzo, father of Packet Tracer, really brilliant stuff. Cool. But there's a certain point where you want your students to do the real thing on the real gear. So we have an access server that connects to the console port, so we do a reverse telnet through the access server, and then you can access that Cisco device. Okay? Now, do you need this for every course? Absolutely not. But if somebody's willing to subsidize your access, like Richard, then it becomes a value-add asset. So Richard's got one of my technicians working with his staff to stand up some of this equipment right now, and they're going to share it with how many schools?
There's 2 high schools.
2 high schools to start? Okay, right. Hopefully more will join. Now all the graphical user interface is actually based on a Linux kernel, but on top of that, to make it easy for you, we give you a web GUI so you can administer everything you need to. You just click and follow the instructions. Okay, the instructor GUI, we actually give you all these tools as you manage class. You can set rules for how often your students can access, etc. And I can show you that kind of functionality, but I'd rather get you on the systems. Student GUI, same thing. This is an example of the vSphere course that maps to install, configure, manage for VCP. These are 2 ESXi servers, a SAN, vCenter, and a vClient. This is assigned to the student. They own this the entire semester. So they can go through and do all the learning objectives to work towards their VCP. Now this is one example. You do the same thing for EMC and other courses. You can also build your own pods. So you can add your own VMs, and you can add your own lab designs. Now once you do that, you can clone the pre-built pods and then marry them to your own library of lab designs. It's my experience that not a lot of people write their own labs. Do you guys disagree with that? Here's what my experience is. What a lot of people do is give student learning objectives and case by examples. But when you try to do a whole library of labs, unless you got funding, it is really hard. Because a lot of instructors, what they get is enough time to teach, lecture, enough time to grade. But they don't get enough time built in to write these huge libraries of labs. So what I've learned is a lot of schools reinvent the wheel. They'll build their labs, and then somebody else, i.e. builds the same library labs. And somebody else builds the same. And after a while, you got these pockets all over the country where people are building the same stuff over and over again. Unless there's business motivation. A vendor program or someone else is motivated to create synergy. Then all of a sudden the labs get distributed as a central opportunity. Does everybody agree with that? So what we want to try to do is figure out models to help the instructors stay current and have access to as many lab libraries as possible. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. We want the new lab libraries to come out to your system automatic. So we distribute them. Within 24 hours, if Cisco comes out with new labs, once we're ready to support them, we've tested them, we know they'll work, we can distribute those out to hundreds of clients all over the world within 24 hours. So we have a distribution model. We have pre-built virtual machines. Now this one's tough. Anybody know why this one's really tough? Anybody? One guess? Every software application and every operating system you use that has a license behind it, you have to honor the license. So if I pre-build something for you and it has a software application on it, but it clearly states I can't custom and timeshare it and or distribute it to you, I'm in a bind. How do I support you now? Right? You would think we all want to make it easier for each other, but obviously people are concerned about their intellectual property. So if you start reading some of the fine print on those licenses, you're going to find really quick a lot of things that even that you think are cool on the internet that you log into, Might be on the edge. So you want to be really careful when you build a VM and you start passing it out to your peer or your friend. You know, you don't want somebody to feel like you violated their intellectual property. So fortunately, there's a lot of agreements in place to try to help us share. I cannot build a VM for you and then distribute it to you if I violate somebody's license. I won't even start down that path. I can tell you how to build your own VM, and or I can set up a VM that you can get from a partner, in this case Cassia.org. You guys think, how many VMs you think? Hundreds?
We've distributed over 400 now, I think.
Okay. So the virtual machines are pre-built, but you got to put your own license keys. If it's Microsoft, for example, or other software applications that require that you as a school own the own license key. All right. So those virtual machines can be pre-built, and that's what we're doing in this case. Now, go ahead.
So the licenses, can they be MSDN licenses?
Yeah.
What I would say to every school is you should talk to whoever manages your license, because there's difference. There's Microsoft IT Academy, which I believe you can pay a set fee to be part of it per year, and that gives you like a blanket. Then there is, oh gosh, what is it, DreamSparks, which you can pay for by the department that covers, and most of my clients at least join DreamSparks Premium. And I suspect most of the people you work with are DreamSparks Premium.
Right there. The VMs, we did ask for a copy of it. And then we send you a CD.
All right, installation guides. Even if you're not using my products, these may help you. On our website, and I hear this over and over again, we love your documentation because it tells us how to set up these programs. Step-by-step guidance on how to set up everything that you might do in a lab yourself, even if you're not being a hosted facility for somebody else. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions from online. One question is, where can we find information about NetPlus, forensics, and Linux Essentials?
I'm going to get there.
Okay.
Sorry.
One other question. Thanks. We have a presentation tomorrow at 11, which we can do remotely. Is it possible to have a conversation over the phone with you later today when you are free?
Sure. Okay. That was easy. Okay. Here are the Cisco courses that we support. IT Essentials. How many of you knew that you could do IT Essentials behind a NetLab Plus system? Yeah, John. Okay, so IT Essentials is very popular for Cisco Academies. Maps to A+, so it's a pretty nice offering for schools. We do have a voice library, but it's aimed more like CCNP. So a lot of schools are working with the community-based CCNA voice, I believe it is, that's available. If you want to go up to CCNP, we have some CCNP voice labs. We can tell you how to do CCNA voice, but we also can tell you how to do wireless. Anybody know why we stay away from those two? Costs. We can tell you how to do those things, but usually what happens is you want to do point-to-point presence on a dial call, and we can tell you how you can play with some of that stuff, but it gets pretty expensive. Wireless, we tell you how to isolate it, but you need isolation boxes, and usually a lot of schools don't have the stomach once you start getting into some of the expenses. Then we support all the CCNP stuff. We're very popular with the high-end CCNP schools, especially four-year universities working towards certs, and then obviously the new CCNAs. Now, what I want to do is give Richard an opportunity to tell you how he's going to offer access.
Thanks, Rich. That's really helpful.
Something happened to your talk again.
Okay.
Testing. Working. Okay, fine. Thank you.
So, as Rich said, we've got a technician. We're actually moving our NetLab. Long story, but we're moving our program from one campus to another, and this is an opportunity to move our NetLab and do it right this time. So, this is for community college teachers and interested, and your administrators, and a good way to sell the NetLab if your school wants to adopt it and you want to make an argument for it. So our program is our largest CTE program. So our IT training program is the largest career technical education program on campus. We have some weight. We've got a series of courses that we use NetLab, and we do lab by arrangement. So lab by arrangement is students do the lab when they can. Usually in the old days used to come into the open lab and do their labs during that time and write down their time either on a hard copy Ledger or some other way, but this way we can put the labs on by arrangement. These are all courses we offer in our CNET program that are supported with NetLab. So we use NetLab for the students to do their labs. It's 48 hours of lab, or equivalent to 2 1/4 full-time equivalent instructors, which if we had face-to-face lab, you'd have to pay the instructor to be there to conduct the lab. So the school likes this. The labs are unfunded by faculty, right? But yet we can collect apportionment from the state as lab by arrangement. Now, this saves a lot of money for the school. We're not going to be able to add new faculty members anytime soon, right now, until we really recover. So this is a way to make an argument for that purpose. And then the apportionment that we collect, we have to document that. And even in the old open lab format, it was difficult because students would have to come in and write on the hard copy, and they'd often forget to do that. And it became a difficult thing to really account for the number of hours that students were doing labs. Well, with NDG, it gets collected. Every time they log on, they do a lab, it's recorded, it's logged. I can bring up this spreadsheet, this table. I can show the number of hours that students actually spent time doing labs. And this is evidence and documentation for apportionment that the state requires. So that's been the biggest thing for our program. I don't know if our program would still be in existence after the dot-com bust in the early 2000s, and then that lag time in the most recent budget crisis, if we could have withstood when programs were being cut, and schools look at maybe teaching an English course is easier for us to do than teaching these CTE courses. I don't think we could have survived without, being able to take advantage of technologies like NetLab. And then we want to share the Cisco equipment. That's what Rich talked about with our local high schools. We have local high schools that are Cisco academies. They have strong programs. They have strong teachers very interested. There's a new curriculum update, requires new equipment. And schools are strapped for money. It's hard for them to invest in what could be several thousands of dollars worth of new Cisco equipment to replace the stuff they just bought 4 years ago. So we're hoping to take and share. We've got quite a few high schools that are affiliated with us, that are local to us at Ohlone College, and we've got 2 of them that are most closely connected to us, American High School and Irvington High School right in Fremont, that we've already talked to them. We're going to share our Cisco gear with them so their students can log on 24/7, do the labs that are required in the curriculum, and keep going. Again, it's only part-time. We've got almost 200 students at Irvington High School. There's 60 students at American High School. That's a lot of time on lab equipment. It's real equipment, so when somebody's scheduled time on there, they're the only ones using it. You can't have multiple people using it simultaneously, but it gives them a chance to get on real equipment. So we're thrilled with NetLab. We've actually been involved with them since the very beginning, I think, and happy to expand it and take advantage of some of the things it can enable us to do. All right?
Thanks, Richard. The thing I like about this the most is these programs that might be cost prohibitive. For example, with the sharing with a high school. How many of you are familiar with 2+4? Like, you can go to community college and start working towards your 4-year degree. Well, if you can get credit towards the community college or 4-year degree in high school, or you can learn something that's relevant at the high school level. Even, I'm going to get ready to talk to you about VCA, the lower cert. If you could get a high school student to start thinking about VMware, introduced to VMware or to Linux, to a higher end subject matter, to start thinking about what they want to do in college, I think that's real value add. That's one thing I'm really proud of. Now, the VMware IT Academy, this program is free to academic institutions. And what the VMware IT Academy wants to do is encourage you to work your students towards certifications. They had the VMware Certified Professional, but it was kind of high-end. A student needed to have some operating system background, need to have some Microsoft background, and they needed to be able to work their way around an operating system almost as a sysadmin. Then they could really be successful at the VCP level. Well, now with all the kind of shift in cloud computing, it's not out of the realm to think someone might be on a business track, like they want to get a 4-year degree, as a business person, and they're going to end up in the IT industry. But if they've got no exposure, maybe they don't want to go to the VCP level, that's above their level at college. What if we gave them an introduction to cloud computing? What if we gave them some basic skills so that they could do really well in an interview, where they knew a little bit about technology? And that's kind of where the VCA comes into play. Rick, was that a fair description? Yeah? Okay. Now, Rick, you probably had managers in the past, like the person that works for me, that said, well, you go do the VCA stuff. You wish their manager did some of this VCA stuff so you could talk to, not at VMware, of course, but other companies, I suspect. So that's kind of the whole hope. For example, my guys are coders, software engineers. We've got ex-CCIE, who's now a coder. I've got BCP level guys. They love it when I can talk to them at the technology level. They get frustrated when I'm like, why can't we do X for our schools? And they go, technically, we can't pull that off. That's where the VCA would help me. So here's the courses we support for the VMware IT Academy. vSphere ICM maps to the VCP. View. How many of you are familiar with View? No one? All right. Of course, Rick Watson, a few other folks. View is virtual desktop implementation from VMware. It's very popular at academic institutions. Why? These computer rooms running around, you don't have to upgrade more hardware. Take that Perkins money, upgrade your server, run it from a central place, and now you can load really nice, fresh operating systems on older hardware. Australia, I saw a place where they didn't have money to upgrade their hardware. They bought one big fancy server, deployed View, VDI, and boom, all those desktops are running the latest operating system, even though they didn't have enough RAM and memory in them. Very nice. All right, now we're working with EMC, and I've got some slides for this, so that you can teach one class and then teach all these VCA courses, including eventually VCA Cloud. But here's the real opportunity for you. This is free online learner for your students. Every single one of you can do this self-paced right here. VMware.com, go VCA, and you can get your VCAs in all these different disciplines. It's free. 4 to 5 hour modules, Rick. So you watch 4 to 5 hours, you study a little bit, you can go take your VCA. Is that of value to anyone? Oh, I got a half slant from one person. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Here is a summary of some EMC labs that are going to map. This is the Cloud Infrastructure Services course. And before I get into that, I wanted to highlight for you, these are the VCA mappings. We're going to introduce the student to vSphere and vCenter. They are not going to be an expert. We're going to introduce it to them. Okay? Then vSphere data store implementation, got to know a little bit about data stores. Then we're going to talk about virtual networking. Is anybody going through the airport, San Francisco, and saw that big sign from VMware, how we're going to change the data center? That's where we're getting all this virtual networking, virtual firewalls, virtual threading, virtual infrastructure, okay? So the students are going to have this coming at them, all right? VMware using Converter, we're going to get into using ThinApp, VMware View, and then chargeback. You know, if you're a bean counter, you really like that kind of model, right? Because most people think they get an IT job, and then the money shows up. Guys who work for me think this all the time. The money shows up from heaven. It's like manna, you know? It just shows up, you know? I can make more money because I got more skills. Well, somebody's got to figure out in that business where the budgets go and the stream, and that's tied to IT. And guess what cloud computing does? It makes it easier for people to understand where the clicks are, right? Where the money goes. So that gets really important. You know, the EMC Academic Alliance program, this is a program we've got 2 courses for. We've got the information storage management and the cloud infrastructure, but I think what's really important here is they're trying to get you relevant to things that are going on in industry. Big data, how many of you think big data would be of value to your students? So they said introduction to big data. Well, I think this is aimed at a 4-year university, right?
I mean, I have a couple that 2 years ago. I think
Do you?
it really depends on what kind of program you have. If you don't have basic, and programming, they won't do well on that.
Now there's a school, a community college from Boston running around here working on a 2-year big data program.
Yeah, that's Deborah.
Who again? Okay, so you guys, if you're interested in that, you may want to talk to Deborah.
Yeah, and Deborah did training, our training over the summer. We're talking about it again.
And then they have backup recovery systems and architect. Most of our clients are hanging out in these 2 courses, so we support those 2 courses. Now, the neat thing about this is if you get these skills, you probably got a really good shot at a job. Does anybody disagree with that? I mean, you may have to move to another city. I mean, My grandparents were farmers. Not a lot of cloud computing going on the farm. So, you may have to move to a city where the jobs are, but the jobs are there. There are opportunities there. All right. Now, here is the courses we support. Information storage management. I'll show you the labs mapped to this course, the book they have. It's all hands-on, real managing RAID through OpenFiler. And then we get into FreeNAS. So we kind of flip it because we're going to have to cover the same concepts. We want the student to be bored. So we used OpenFiler here, FreeNAS here. We're going to get into some really deep storage concepts and virtualization concepts. But by the time they're done, they can get all those certs, potentially, if they want. Now, they're going to have to do a little bit of their own self-paced learning in that VMware Go site. Okay. Now, this is the storage management book. Anybody used it? Bill's used it. Bill? Your students like it?
Yeah,
It's very generic. It's not EMC. It doesn't require any EMC hardware. It's just teaching you generic concepts. These labs are also very generic. In fact, EMC encouraged us to use OpenFiler. Why? How many of you can put a SAN device in front of every student? It's not practical to have a big old SAN sitting on every desk, right? Okay, Cloud Infrastructure Services. This does map to a cert. I want everybody to look at this. This is the introduction material. Look at the cost. You are actually helping your students compete and save money on these classes. That was probably a low-cost commercial class. John, I think you've done comparative analysis. What is the commercial class cost for like VMware or IM storage type? So your students save a lot of money at your school. Now, here are the learning objectives that are being taught. Now, the business impact, obviously, is very clear for cloud computing. We probably don't have to beat that too much. Here are the Series 1 chapter lab matrix. So if you notice, we have a chapter module, and then we get into actually teaching the student concepts that correspond to that different module. Okay? And here's the second series. Here. Now, I'm getting ready to release this series to the community, and I will actually host it for you. So here's a question for you. So you don't have to set up anything. How many of you are EMC Academic Alliances today? 1, 2, 3. Would you be willing to pilot these if I host them for you? 4. How many of you are not EMC, but you would join so you could pilot this if we give it to you for free? All right, Kim, you see the hands in the air? One, 2, 3. Okay, so see Kim. Afterwards, get her name and email address to Kim. We will host these so your students can trial these 9 labs by the end of this month. This Series 2, we have these in draft mode, and we will add those to the list as soon as they go production. We're in a QA cycle with them now. Here's the topology. Pretty neat. If you look at this, we're using a Linux client. Our Linux friends forced us to. vCenter client, ESXi1, 2, and then we've got 2 storage devices. And the learner has that to do the different lab libraries that we just went through. Okay, that's basically Series 1 right there at a high level so you can read it better. So you're going to teach the student RAID, block level file storage, backup recovery, replication, deduplication. So you get a good feel for the topics that are going to be covered. I personally think if you're a business student on a business track, you probably should sit down and at least attend one of these classes, read a book, do a few of these labs, because cloud computing is going to touch every industry. You work in a hospital today, somebody's running around there worried about deploying virtualization. So if you teach information systems or if you teach like business track, this will be a really good library to encourage your students to take. All right, so here's Series 2. Again, we're getting into more of the management, VDI, and chargeback. And then here's how it maps again to the VCA. So if you watch those online and then you were to do these different labs. All right, Kim, anything you want to add to that, the EMC?
No, I just want to add one thing though. When John was saying about this course, it's like if you come to EMC for that cloud course, it's $2,700. So it's more than $1,500. And I will just add one other thing is that both the cloud and the ISM network support is tied to certification that EMC has, and if your students can remember that if your students have off the exams, they get it for $100, or a little more than that, 63% off. But the other thing is, you come to EMC and you take the cloud or ISM course, you don't get labs. EMC doesn't provide labs because they're technology-based courses.
Go to schools.
Yes, so we partner with Rich because what do schools want? They want labs, and Rich NDG, having created labs using VMware and then open source tools enables you to get labs that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So I think it's a win-win all around.
So about 5 to 4 years ago, I saw a big shift in industry and education. Anybody know what that was in academia? I used to go to a place and I'd work at a workshop or a conference, and people would look at me and go, that's vocational. We don't do vocational. Does anybody ever hear that anymore?
Yes, all the time.
Do you really? Interesting, because they never say that to me anymore. Now I get calls, I won't say them, but I went to North Carolina State land grant, 4-year engineering program. I get calls from engineering schools now, which is interesting. Yes.
The philosophy of most of my department, if it doesn't transfer to UC Berkeley or Cal State, it ain't worth it.
Well, I can tell you, in IT, I believe people really value vocational now. In other words, even if you're a theory-based training program, I think you've got to give some hands-on experience, or your students really going to struggle to compete. And I think that's where a lot of the power is. All right, Linux. About a year ago, I started to see a trend where a lot of the people we're trying to train up were learning everything like Microsoft operating systems that were proprietary, software applications were proprietary, but industry was rapidly developing their own stuff. OpenStack, CloudStack, then using Linux so they could save on licensing fees. Does anybody agree that that's a trend that's going on? All right, so I looked to partner with a Linux organization, and that's where I found Russ and Chuck. Chuck, do you want to share what the LPI Academy is, what you're standing up at LPI?
Yeah, LPI Academy is really was born out of Ross and I. We attended an academic conference last year, and we should have an academy program. And basically what it boils down to is a core lesson of educators or institutions that have an interest in teaching Linux and open source content curriculum. And also vendor partners that have, like NDG, that have developed courseware or content that make it very easy to lay a program in. And then also to align with an organization like our own to give students an opportunity to earn a credential, a certificate through a Linux Essentials program, or a junior level certification that starts with our Linux Plus, powered by LPI, which is through our CompTIA partnership, and or LPIC 1, which is the same certification essentially, and then also industry partnerships where we can provide opportunities for students to get work experience through our jobs initiative. Aligned with ODS, for example, these are world's largest online workplace where students can, rather than wait on tables or do other jobs unrelated to their field of endeavor, can actually go and pick up some part-time contract work as a freelancer through the ODS organization. And then, of course, we have corporate members that have opportunities as well for students to eventually to get a job. And so it really boils down to having a program that makes it easy for institutions to adopt, makes it easy for educators to stack a program into their existing curriculum, and then for students to get the training they need and the experience they need with the whole intent of really bringing the resume up to the top of the stack so that they can get the job interview.
So it's free. That's what everybody was waiting to hear. And LPI is going to help you teach these courses, because just like other programs you really value that give you good content, for example, one of the best I know, John Berkey here with Cisco Networking Academy, great content. What if their learning management system had an introduction to Linux supported by LPI.org and funded by NDG? This is an introduction to Linux. It's free in Cisco NetSpace. All you got to do is join Cisco Networking Academy, and you can go off and put this in operating system course, Linux course, whatever you want. As you're reading about Linux, it maps to the objectives for the learner. Basically will demystify this command line thing, and the neat thing about it is we'll actually give them a VM while they're reading about the content. And we don't stop there. We'll actually give them a lab exercise where they can cover that topic, and we'll give you questions and answers that are automatically graded with midterms and finals. Anybody interested?
This is in NetSpace now?
It's going to be in there by the end of January. I'm working with John's team, the product team, and we will have this in there by the end of January. I'm using NetSpace for this right now. Every single one of you will be able to log into it. We have thousands of people doing it. Anybody want to pilot it?
Sure.
Yeah? We've had a lot of requests to pilot it.
So how will an instructor be able to offer one of those classes? Do they have to, are there any qualifications?
Join the Linux Professional Institute Academy, which is free. Participate in Cisco Networking Academy, and we'll turn it on as a pilot for you.
And we will have information. We've got a table that will be outside of the break areas. We have some information about the LPI Academy program. Ross is going to be presenting at 1:30 today about the LPI Academy program too. We'll have everybody to
All right, here's the learning modules. We got 16. Go ahead, Ross.
So from the Cisco point of view, there's no teacher certification?
No. We're going to make the assumption you're a professional instructor. It's Introduction to Linux. If you go through the material yourself, you should be able to cover it because it introduces Linux. Here's the 16 modules. I won't spend a lot of time on that because I'm running out of time. That's the pilot. We also have more advanced Linux labs. You can work with John, get access from Cassie. You can work with me. You can work with any host school like Richard. And there are Linux Plus lab libraries. But here's the neat thing. LPI is actually the engine behind the Linux Plus cert. Did you guys know that? And here's the other nice thing. If you do their LPIC 1, you get credit for 3 certs, Linux Plus, LPIC 1, and SUSE.
Let me clarify. So Linux Plus is our LPIC 1 certification branded by CompTIA. It's LPI, it's Linux Plus, powered by LPI. So if you start there, you earn you pass the 2 exams that are required to get that certification. In LPI, you can check the box, and LPI will then award the LPIC 1. And then we have another partnership with SUSE, and once the candidate receives their certification packet for the LPIC 1, they will have the opportunity to go to SUSE.
They can see you today, though, right?
And
see Chuck today, and he'll take care of it.
Yeah, I get to CLA. And so
Dan?
3 for the cost of 1.
Sorry, Chuck, I'm running out of time. Dan, you want to share everybody what you're doing for your Citrix schools?
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present this. I'm with the Academy program. I have a session tomorrow, 11:20 in room, 11:30 in room 1102, more on the program, but on the left-hand side, quick description of what we provide there. I don't have a formal relationship with NDG and Rich. I've known Rich for a long time. We're working on that. But this is a testament to the community, education community, and the platform that NDG has. That we have an academy down in Australia that has taken our 2 course labs, so our virtual desktop course called Zen Desktop and virtual applications course called Zen App. They repurpose those labs in the NDG platform. And so those can be available here pretty soon. You'll see coming soon here. And kind of neat that John is up here too, because John and Moraine Valley is a part of this project as well. Where we're going to hopefully get the Zen App course labs in the NDG platform up to Moraine Valley for distribution here within about 4 to 6 weeks, something like that, and then the Zen Desktop course labs after that. So got my email down there in the bottom right. Feel free to reach out to me here at
Dan.Myers.
Dan.Myers
at Citrix.com.
And we'll give you some more information or attend the session tomorrow at 11:30.
All right, guys, there's a lot of cool stuff going on with CyberWatch, CyberWatch West, CyberWatch East. They're hitting home runs all over the place to help schools. National Cyber League is a program with multiple. I just highlight this. John hosts a stadium, and I believe you'll host pretty much for anybody that's an instructor trying to get the skills. Yes. Right? You'll help them get the skills, right? So we work with John, and we work with them to add those programs. We're adding more courses. We get requests for like power grid, industrial, you name it. It comes from everywhere. Okay, so I want to hand this over to John. The reason I want to is if you can't set up your own lab environment, see John. We'll work with you and try to help you, okay? Yeah, what we've tried to do is take a leadership and actually building a community that's using these tools now, because there are literally dozens and dozens of schools. I don't know the actual number that you have out there now, Rich, but we're finding more and more schools have it. And it's really nice to have these packaged courses, right? Because it's standardized, it meets certain industry requirements, it aligns with certifications and so on. But most of us know we don't want to all put out the exact same students, right? We want to have the ability to actually put some specializations and some additional labs and features within our programs. So it's one of the things that we've tried to do nationally is that we've hosted workshops, and we're literally teaching people how to build their own labs. So, you want to take these foundational labs. You have to have the foundations. But if you want to go above and beyond that, if you want to teach, an email server or whatever, an email class, teach an exchange or whatever. Well, we're doing that. We're doing other courses. We want to share how you can do that in this environment and teach a multitude of other courses. Okay. We are a National Science Foundation Resource Center. We're also a member of the NISGTC Consortium. So as part of that, we've been producing and pumping out a lot, with Rich's help, pumping out a lot of content in a lot of different areas. If you're teaching GIS, I don't know if you knew that or not, but we're building content in NetLabs for GIS. So, and we're looking at mobile devices and programming and other areas. You sort of skip through, IT Essentials, and I got to tell you, I think that is one of the most critical things that you can use NetLabs for. Why? How many has worked with high schools? How many has been in a high school classroom? How many has seen how they lock that classroom down? Students can't do anything. I mean, you're going to try to teach them how to manage an operating system when they can't even change a password to create an account. And so you have to have a sandbox where you can put students in, and they can actually work safely, and the high schools are willing to work with you on it. All they need is web access. And now you can actually teach real content. For the last 5-10 years, one of the things that we've really tried to do is push this into the high schools so that they can actually teach things that will prepare for real certifications. And that's been a big effort of ours. I just want to overview these real quick, and we're going to run out of time here in a little bit, but just want to give you an idea of the new course content that we've been developing. We're constantly upgrading and expanding our faculty development offerings. You can go up to cascade.org and see those. Most of them are free. We've been asked by the National Science Foundation to charge a minimal fee because we want to see us to start to become more and more sustainable without NSF dollars. So we have charged in a lot of cases $50 or $100 for a course that might cost you, $1,500 or $1,200 to take it commercially. And again, they are the exact same courses you take commercially. So I think it's still a really good deal. But also make sure that teachers show up, because we opened up a class for Tony just a while back for CyberWatch West, and before we could even communicate with them that the class was open, within a couple of days it was full. So we couldn't accommodate the people that needed to from the West Coast. So we had to actually create another class. All right, so we are charging small amounts in some cases for some of these faculty development courses, but they're completely virtual. They're synchronous. We have top instructors from the vendors help us teach some of these courses. So we either have some of our top instructors do it, or we have vendors actually help provide instruction. And one of the things that we've done, we just talked about, is we're involving students too. We have some students that have gone through these labs over and over again, and we have them assist. So if you're going through a lab and you're stuck on something, believe it or not, we've had students that have gone through them 3-4 times, and they can come in and help you and walk you, where the next step is. All right? This has become a vital part of cyber competitions. We could not do the level of competition, the complexity, and for the cost. In the old days, to run a competition, you were talking $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to set up the physical environment to do this. Now we can basically roll off and replicate these competitions for almost nothing. It's a matter of paying a support person to actually replicate these things. And we've really made some great advances this year, and we've been able to outreach to minority organizations with this as well. So we're working with, I don't know how many of you are familiar with ADME, but they're a group of historically black colleges, and we're going to have the first actual competition at their annual conference this year in April. We have 12 schools that are participating, and they didn't have the resources or the content or whatever to actually do this in the past. So now we're bringing those teams into the national sphere of competition, and able to share some, well, you've seen the content, able to share this type of content with those organizations. So just to run through these real quick, in the DLL grant, we basically have 4 areas that the grant, the NISGTC grant addressed. All right, so the first one is information technology fundamentals, which is things like A+ and N+ and Linux. So we are going to have new content specifically for that grant that's out there. We work with Rich on.
N+ comes out by the end of the month.
Yeah, so that content will be hitting the streets here soon. Cybersecurity, we're sort of the lead institution on that. You can see we've got a ton of different courses, and we're working on more. Any that are CA2Ys right now, seen the new KUs? There was a big change. Well, there's a big shift. What's the shift? Well, the shift is you now have to have some fundamental programming and scripting.
So one of the things that we are going to be doing to address that, if you want to maintain your CA2I and you need to bridge that gap, is we're going to be distributing some new courses. So we'll have some scripting courses, simple scripting courses to be out there, and we'll put some programming courses in the same space that will teach you other things. So if you need those courses to maintain your CA2I designation, we're currently in the process of working on them. And we're adding a new course to the things that we've had out there now. We're in the process working right now on a new course that's sort of, we call it Network Security Management. It aligns to sort of the CISSP and sort of the CompTIA CAST certification. So if you're familiar with any certification came out last year or the year before, it's more of a high-level managerial type of thing in cybersecurity. However, I think it's critical. I mean, I teach cybersecurity now for the last 10 years. And it's unbelievable that we put people out into the workforce that wouldn't understand the basic ISO standards and things like that. I mean, they at least need to see those things and see the references and the resources that are available nationally for someone that's going to go into a job like that. So that course will be out by this summer, and we figured that's going to probably be a pretty popular course this summer. If you're looking for your CISSP certification, we'll also align to the 10 domains of the CISSP, so it should prepare you for that as well. Geospatial, yeah.
What sort of content do you have in the forensics area?
We basically have two courses. We have a network forensic course, and we're working on a brand new mobile forensics course. So that's going to really deal. We're really concentrating more on the Android side because of the issues we have with the Apple side of it. The Apple licensing just doesn't work in a virtual environment. I mean, they want you to pay for the software per hardware device you'd actually have to purchase. There's just no way we could get that to work. So I just don't see that as something that we can pull off. But those are two sides, one networking side, one mobile device side. In geospatial, got a bunch of work going on there. We have a lead institution down in Texas that's helped us in that. And I think, is he giving us?
Dr. Davis is here if you're interested in GIS.
Yeah, and so
we've got 5 courses running in NetLab at Del Mar College if you're interested.
So if you're looking to bring on a GIS course inexpensively and where all the content's done. One of the beauties of these courses, by the way, it's just not labs. It's labs. It's assessment tools. We're using Blackboard and Moodle as our course management system. It's PowerPoint presentations, it's case studies. So it's more than just labs, right? And then the last thing is the programming and mobile devices.
We're run over.
Yes.
Could you just give us contact information if they want to work with
yes.
you, John? Because it's obvious you've got a lot of good programs that can. Guys, I'm sorry I ran over. What I prefer to do is let you actually do labs. So if I've covered a topic you're interested in, every single topic I covered today for instructors, we will work with you to get you access if you want to do the labs. You want to do Linux stuff? We'll make sure you get access. If we don't host it for you, we'll find somebody that can. So you can visit our website or you can contact John.
Can I ask one other question? How many of you are using NetLabs now? How many of you create your own labs in NetLabs now? Okay, because have you attended one of the workshops that we've done? Because we're looking at hopefully expanding that. We're going to do one on the East Coast this year. But if you're using it, I mean, why not leverage it for your other courses? And I think that's been a really popular workshop. We've gotten great feedback on those. So if you're looking at expanding maybe your offering, take an existing course and provide it, and then share it, within the community.
Ross, the timing is floating well, but we have a Cascade course on the 20th.
Okay.
That starts for Linux Essentials. Right. You want to see the new course with. Yeah, that's right. And you're doing a workshop this afternoon, right? Yes. So, guys, the way I'll summarize it is we know it's hard for instructors to get all the resources they need. We know that not every school is going to be able to afford our software or our hardware. So we have a sharing model. So Richard can share with you, John can share with you. We're trying to figure out a way to create a sustainable ecosystem. Keep in mind, no one's paying us from the federal government. So what we do is each one of them pay us an annual fee. It's $2,700. That annual fee in the aggregate from hundreds of academic institutions on all the labs that we saw that were put up on the board today. So that's how the model works.
Okay.
Thanks for your time, everyone.